Welcome back to Shoggoth. Shoggoth? I don't know. This is the second video, so if you haven't seen the first, go ahead, check that out, and then come back. A key component in any game with combat are enemies. So let's go add some. Well, I went to the asset store and I borrowed some assets. I found this really cool skeleton model and plopped it into the scene. And while we're here, you know, the penguin, he looks nice. He's a cool dude, but I want some animations and the penguin can't do that right now. So he's got to go. Just for now though, he'll be back. I promise. Maybe. Now we have this enemy, the skeleton, but we want to be able to kill it. So how do we do that? Well, this is pretty easy to do. Again, we use the nav mesh system from earlier. We get a click. If you click on the enemy, you move towards the enemy, and once you're in a certain range, you swing your sword at him. Woo, woo. But this is a bit boring. I want to be able to use spells. So went onto YouTube, looked up some tutorials, found one by Gabriel Aguirre, and it's a fireball tutorial. And so just followed it, and boom, now we can shoot fireballs all over the place. But I mean, this is a bit unfair. The skeleton, he can't do anything to me, can he? So we need to add some brains to him. But before we do that, I need to add health and mana to the player so the skeleton can actually damage me. So doing that was easy enough, just going into the player script and adding in some values, whatever. But it was adding the UI that was a bit challenging. Diablo and Path of Exile have kind of these orbs that represent your health and mana, and so I wanted to recreate that. And I actually did this myself, and it turned out okay. I'm actually kind of surprised because I suck with shader graph, but it works, and you get the idea, right? And then that's all that matters right now. But of course, my character is a god, and he doesn't die even when his health reaches 0 yet. Alright, now we can actually add some brains to the skeleton. This is a bit complicated, but I'll give you the rundown. The enemies work on what's known as a finite state machine. So this means that there are states that the enemy can be in, and each state has separate properties and attributes that it follows. So just imagine water, you know, it can be solid, it can be liquid, it could be a gas, and each of these states have different properties. They act differently. Just like water, the enemies can also have various states, such as a patrolling state, a chasing state, an attack state, you know, so on and so on. But to make this state machine, we need two scripts. The first is the enemy's base state. So this kind of serves as a template for all the other states. In here, there are two functions. There's the enter state function, which is called every time you first enter that state. And then there's the update state function, which is continuously called every 2 seconds that state is active. But what does being active mean? How do we know which state is active? Because it can only be one state at one time, right? A molecule of water can't be both ice and water vapor. Well, that's what the second script is for. This is the state manager script. So there's a bunch of random variables here, but these are the most important ones. At the top here is the current state, and this is the variable that stores the active state. Remember, it can only be one state at a time. Below it are variables for each possible state. So again, we have a chase state, an attack state, an idle state, whatever. If we look further down in this script, we can find some goodies. At the bottom of the start function is a call to a coroutine. This is what calls that update state function from earlier. At the bottom of the script is the switch state function, which, unsurprisingly, switches the state. I call this function in each individual state's scripts once certain conditions are met. So for example, a dead state. No matter what state the skeleton's currently in, whether it's idle, attacking, or chasing, if its health goes below 0, it should immediately go to the dead state. And inside the dead state, there's no other switch state because it's dead. It's dead, okay? Quick question. If we're going from idle to chasing, we need to be able to see the player. So how do we see the player? I mean, we could do a simple raycast, which I did before, and then just like shoots forward if he sees the player, but we don't just see straight forward. We have kind of this sort of 180-degree view around us. So we're actually able to kind of mimic this using the dot product between the player and the skeleton. Now, I don't know exactly how this math works, but there is a wonderful tutorial. I'll show it and link it down below. But it explains how to implement it perfectly. It's useful, and then you can have a range, so I can change how wide its view distance is. And then of course, there's a certain range that the player needs to be in for the enemy to actually see the player. So to finish up this AI, I just needed to make a script for each possible state. Again, idle state, attack state, blah blah blah. This is like my 4th time saying them. You get the idea. They're not completely fleshed out yet, but they're the basics, and that's what these first few videos are trying to accomplish. Now, what's an RPG without quests, right? I don't know, but they're not an RPG in my books, so that was the next thing I worked on. Just kidding. It was actually a dialogue system. I needed to implement that first, so then I could implement the quest system. And this is actually really easy to do. I followed another tutorial, this time by a YouTuber called Trevor Mock, and in it you use a program called Ink, and it allows you to create branches and options, and it allows you to give attributes to each individual line of text. So you could do like the speaker's name, their portrait, an emotion. You can do all sorts of stuff with it. And it's really helpful because we can then make an attribute that says, hey, this dialogue is associated with the start of this quest. And so then we have another script that when it's reading the dialogue, it's looking for all these attributes. And if it sees that attribute, we can go and we can grab it from a list of quests somewhere. That's pretty much it for this video. Hit that subscribe button and like the video, comment down below something, just give me some feedback. That's really all I ask for. You can follow my Twitter, where I post sometimes with updates on videos and whatever project I'm currently working on. And check out the videos that are on screen right now. They're nifty.